Good afternoon, folks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us at the Core Network Conference. Today's workshop is Centering Equity in a National Civilian Climate Core Model, Centering BIPOC Young Adults and Communities. This presentation is put together and hosted by Green City Force. We will have Tonya Gayle take it away.
All right, thanks very much, Hillary. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Very happy to be here today. As Hillary said, I'm Tonya Gayle, Executive Director of Green City Force, and very happy and proud to be part of the Core Network leadership. We're going to be taking you through overview of how GCF focuses equity in our work, and I'm really happy to have a number of our team members. Felicia, who you're going to hear about throughout the session, so I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves. Felicia, Erin, Aram, Josh. And so what we hope to cover today is a welcome. Felicia's going to take us through a brief icebreaker. Since we're virtual, obviously we'll try to take as much advantage of the chat as possible, since we know there's a big group and we want everyone to share resources. We're going to present an overview, but we want to try to have time for discussion and lift up other urban cores that are doing aligned and important intentional work around equity. I will talk a bit about GCF as an overview, and then we'll get into it more specifically into how each element of our structured program, represented by my team members here, is intentional and driven around the focus of equity. We believe that a climate core model, as we look at the national, state, and local investments at this time, is really critical, and most importantly, that there are, through the core network, really strong models of what currently is happening and has happened. And so we want to lift up what we all align on as the key drivers of equity best practices, with the intention of having some time for Q&A and discussion in the last part of the session. I just want to start by my own introduction. I'm Tonya Gayle. I've been with GCF since 2014. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am coming to you today from Brooklyn, New York, and GCF is in New York, which is the ancestral home of the Lenape, Rockaway, and Canarsie Indians. So we're really happy to join you all today, and I'm going to pass it to Felicia, who's going to start us off with a bit of an icebreaker exercise.
Yes, thank you, Tonya. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Felicia Prince. I'm the Director of Support Services at Green City Force, and I'll just leave it there for the sake of time. So if you all could just put in the chat, what do you see, what comes up for you when you think about this picture? And then as we go through this presentation, I want you to think about what are the roles and the benefits. How do you see your core shifting the mindset from equity and liberation? Throughout the presentation, you'll hear us speak a lot about equity. You're also going to hear us speak a lot about liberation. When we think about equity, it's how do we create space for everyone at the table or create a new table? And when we think about liberation, is how are we supporting the communities in which we serve to be able to dismantle the systems, right? So there's no longer a need for equity. So I see a lot of things in the chat. So options, potential, current barriers, visions for the future, absolutely. So these are all the things that we're going to be capturing throughout the presentation. And Tonya, you can go on to the next slide. So when we think about the building blocks for an equitable program, it's really important that we are reflective and intentional about the impacts of the disproportionate rates of injustices experienced by BIPOC folks, right? Across multiple sectors: employment, health, wealth gaps, food insecurity, environmental impacts, right? We recognize the need to do this work from an equity perspective, so we're not causing harm on the communities that we're meant to serve. So when we think about trauma-informed practices and policies, right? How are we being intentional about recognizing that trauma exists? When generational trauma, collective trauma within the communities in which we serve, systematic trauma like racism, right? And how are we approaching each individual that we're speaking to from this idea that maybe they did experience trauma. How are we training our staff, right? So that they're intentional about not harming or causing harm on the folks that we are supposed to be helping. Other building blocks is training young people from an equity and racial justice perspective. So connecting the racial, environmental, and food justice work, right? They're all connected. We can't do one without the other. And we have to give our young people as the credible messengers in this work, the people who are going to be leading the work for years to come, on what equity looks like. Provide them the language so that they can teach the people around them. Including wraparound services to support hope and healing, right? Recognizing that trauma can be really hard. It can also be hard on the staff. Recognizing that from an equity perspective, that everyone has different needs. We have to include wraparound services to be able to support those needs, to be able to get to a place of hope and healing. Teaching life skills and tangible skills so that folks can be able to liberate themselves, right? Share space and the role as the experts, recognizing that our young people have everything that they need to be successful, and sharing space to know that they're the experts in their lives and we're here to support them. And ensure that historically silenced voices are centered. It's so important when we think about this idea of trauma, and it's based in this idea, it's stolen and blocked opportunities, right? Folks have been silenced for years. We need to reclaim our people and their voices. And lastly, ensuring program elements lead to green careers. That's a part of the liberation works. That is liberation work.
Thanks, Felicia. So you can see we are very intentional about our work, and thankfully we have Felicia and the team working with our own core members, and then nationally with some of you with the Moving Forward initiative. And I just want to shout out the last session that was a really important conversation, and it made me think, you know, everyone was talking about a seat at the table, and this is like old school, but many of you have probably heard that, you know, if you don't have a seat at the table, then you're going to be on the menu. So we really are committed to making sure that we do all that we can and hold ourselves accountable for always lifting the voices of the young people. Overview of GCF is that, you know, our pillars have been historically since 2009, service, training, sustainability, and justice. And you can see here our mission and our vision. I'm going to attempt to play for you a brief video, which again, speaking from the voice of our members, love for you to hear directly from what their experiences have been. And here's an example from Chantel.
I feel like it's not a lot of opportunities in like the green sector for like urban young people out of public housing. It's more like, oh, you want a job, go to McDonald's. Probably like 3 years ago, you would have told me, Chantel, you're gonna be an urban farmer. I would laugh at you. Like, like what? Me? No way. Being able to know, like, okay, I know how to grow my own food. I know how to compost. I know the best way to do recycling. I know all the things that I need to know to be sustainable is something that's invaluable. You can't unlearn it. Residents contribute to the farm, and in exchange, they can get vegetables. Their contribution could be compost, which is like eggshells or coffee grounds, apple cores, basically anything that is organic that you don't use. And if you don't have that, you could volunteer time for at least 30 minutes. And we think time is valuable. I love being able to connect with the residents and being able to share something that's positive with them. Most of us that live in NYCHA developments, we live in food deserts. I started petitioning to NYCHA about having a garden in my development, and it actually worked. Once I finished that one, you know, I'm not gonna stop. going to make sure that other developments have the same opportunity, because it changes the residents, it changes the environment, it changes how people see where they live. I never thought that you could make real money doing gardening or doing composting. These are jobs that I just found out about that I'm like, wait, what? 60,000 a year, 40,000 a year. Where was I all this time when all these jobs are popping up? So having a training program that's saying, hey, this is where the money's at. This is where you can be sustainable, and this is also a way that you can make a difference in your life and somebody else's life. It's invaluable.
Okay. All right. So
the farm is a magical place.
Oh, sorry. Let me stop that.
Food has a way of breaking.
Sorry about that. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to talk a bit overview about the overall arch of GCF as a national climate core model, and then we'll have each of the team members go into the particular sections. So this is an image of New York City public housing. And so climate change, earlier folks were talking about the idea of, natural spaces and forestry and more rural, non-urban places, but there are very real issues and challenges and solutions tied to urban climate change solution. One of the presenters earlier was focusing on the idea of how you describe climate change priorities is partially due to your lived experience. And so we focus intentionally on a population of 1 in 15 New Yorkers in New York City with an acronym NYCHA you heard in the video previously. And we recruit from that group, and it is a place that is, in addition to being a representative of 1 in 15 low-income New Yorkers, it's 83% BIPOC representation. It is one of the largest landlords in New York City, so there is a huge carbon footprint there. And all of our primary service initiatives are coming from that community. And we believe that it's an intentional focused space where mutual solutions can happen and be replicable at the city, state, national level. And so what we do is we look at the population of 1 in 15 New Yorkers. Roughly 50,000 of the NYCHA community members are 18 to 24-year-olds who are our target population for recruitment. And of that population, compared to their peers across New York City pre-COVID, the rate in New York City of unemployment was 35%, and the rate in NYCHA was 72% unemployment. And so we're very intentional about intersectional solutions, and our priority is to solve for youth unemployment needs that are real in BIPOC communities and frontline communities, and then also addressing the huge investments and priorities citywide and NYCHA-wide that are specific, so that we're also creating solutions that lead to access, economic mobility, and community transformation from the frontline communities. This is our dual impact model. This is an overview of the core member liberation journey. Each member of our team is going to talk about their sections in more detail. So broad strokes, over to the left, that's representative of the 1 in 15 New Yorker NYCHA population. We recruit groups of young people, like many of you, in service, and we're an urban conservation corps that's working in teams, recruitment and orientation, to give them access and invitation to this experience. And we deploy them as leaders and drivers of solutions tied to the communities they come from. So 80% of their work in service is within their own like communities, and they're leading transformation while they're building their skills. Upon completion of the first step of our program, which is service and training, they're then in alumnihood evolved into all types of sustainability and climate resolution career pathways, which Aram and Josh will speak to later on. And this is a vision pictorially of what we think needs to be part of the design and planning and long-term creation of what a climate core at the national level should look like. I'm going to pass it to Erin in a second. She's going to take you through some of the early stages of how folks come into our program and how that process begins.
You could go back one.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, everyone. My name is Erin Johnson. I'm the Director of Service with Green City Force. I've been with the organization about 4 years, and I'm going to keep it short because we got a lot to get through. So big picture, we're meeting applicants literally and figuratively where they are, grounding them in equity and the inclusive economy, the connections between racial, food, and environmental justice. That's all baked in right from the start. And we're introducing it in doses in different ways. So sort of to build a foundation while we're building a cohesive community with a strong culture. So how do we do that? Next slide. As Tonya mentioned, we recruit NYCHA young adults exclusively for our program. And our program design is centered on these young adults as local leaders in their community, whether they know it or not. In our recruitment, it's somewhat of a self-selection process. We're attracting people who are looking to lead, looking to do something different, looking to grow, push themselves outside their comfort zone. Some folks come to us for a variety of reasons, but there's some common thread there. Where we have the chance to invest in these, potential local leaders. Like I said, we are literally meeting them where they are. We are flyering in NYCHA developments. I would say about 50% of our applicants come to us through that way. They saw a flyer, a family member saw a flyer. It takes a lot of paper, unfortunately, but we are going directly to the source, going to where they live. And then we work closely with NYCHA partners who help us get the word out to other, through other avenues. So that is a department within NYCHA that's focused on resident engagement employment, and a department of the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice. Our recruitment process is equity focused. So we're recognizing the needs of our young people and creating spaces to support them and follow up with them a lot during the process. It takes a lot of follow up, but we're trying to call them in, not call them out. We're texting, phone calls, emails, whatever it takes. It's a lot of investment upfront to get them in the door. But we put in the time to do that. That's really critical to our process. And then, we're finding a way in. So yes, some of them come to us as leaders, but some of our best graduates initially joined just for the Metro card, or because they had nothing else going on. But because of our program design and the diversity of our service experience, we're able to find a way in with all of these members. So there's always a way to hook them. Throughout our interview and recruitment process, we're decolonizing professionalism. So what might be considered a conventionally bad interview is actually a good interview for us. We're creating space for young people to grow and learn how to navigate systems through feedback. We're realistic about the program, what we'll ask of them, what will be hard or uncomfortable, and try to get an idea of where they are, because we want to make sure that they're ready. And then we have multiple different stages of the recruitment process, so we can be responsive to many different interview styles. So we have something called tryouts. We do one-on-one interviews. We do psychosocial assessments. And these different processes push them outside their comfort zone and help us to assess what barriers they may be facing. We don't want to set members up to fail, so we really want to be realistic about it throughout the whole process. Are they ready for this? And then we've developed what we call an opportunity for growth profile, where we're reserving about 20% of our slots. We're leaving room for those that can benefit from our program, but aren't necessarily going to be job ready by the end. We're recognizing the failure of our systems and not wanting to not give this opportunity to people just because they're not going to meet our, oh, this is what being job ready at the end looks like. They still have something to contribute and to grow from our program, and there's so much value there. And they also, it's a really great way to bring diversity in with our members and make sure that we're not recruiting only one type of member. You can go to the next slide. Orientation is an intense period. It's typically 7 to 8 days, 9 to 5. By the end, the members are dying to get to the field, but that grounding work is super, super, super crucial. And they're not ready for the field yet. So we come on strong from the start. Some people take some time to warm up to us, but we're unapologetic about who we are or the work or how we do things. But it's all backed up. You know, we have alumni leaders. All of our core member supervisors are alums of the program. A lot of our applicants are friends or family members from alums. So, you know, it lends credibility to our work to have those people right there with us. And then throughout orientation, we're building a narrative. We've got themes for each day that are tied to our pillars that are really intentional around this equity-centered program design. So we've got a nod to Jay-Z on day one. Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is GCF and we are AmeriCorps. That's how we start orientation, talking all about service, working our way through the intersections between Black and Brown excellence and systemic racism. We're showing them examples of social justice leaders in the inclusive economy. And by the end, we're getting to hope and healing and talking about self-liberation. So this is all, you know, right at the beginning during orientation. So by seeing leaders that are talking about real issues that they can relate to, you know, they can start to feel their value and power in this movement and the importance of them in this work. And, you know, it's important for them to know their privilege. So we do an activity called the Privilege Walk. And I would say from the outside, if you don't know our core members, you might think that the group is a little homogenous and would generally be categorized as an underprivileged group. But like I said, there's a lot of diversity within them. And, you know, we want them to recognize that it's a privilege just to be able to be a part of this program, to be in this space. And the Privilege Walk is a tool for them to see their own power and build empathy. We have them create their own community agreements. So they have agency in creating their space and what they want to agree to, how they want to treat each other. And the last, one of the last things we do during orientation is a tradition called milestones, where members can share a few key moments from their life. Sometimes it's something they're really proud of or really joyous. Often it's incidents of trauma or pain. And it's voluntary. We don't force anyone to share, but we find that, you know, there's a few brave souls at the beginning and then, you know, a whole lot really end up wanting to share. It's a really incredible tool to build empathy. And it also, you know, throughout this process, we're building pride in this movement, in this work, in the organization, knowing that there's something part of bigger and that we're changing the narrative and uprooting systems. And we build culture and pride through things like calls and responses. We have each cohort develop their own chant. We do something called power moves, so that GCF culture in turn leads to a feeling of a GCF family. It's tough love sometimes, but it's support and it's commitment to each other. And then once they've completed orientation, we transition to service boot camp. It's their first time hitting the field. This is where, you know, we're really putting them to the test. You know, you've gotten this great foundation and now let's go apply it. Let's see what it looks like in service. And in service boot camp, they're getting a service boot camp tee. So that's their first taste of what it means to have a uniform, the power of that. So they're all, you know, in a t-shirt the same color, got the AmeriCorps logo, and that's on their journey to earning their real GCF uniform. Next slide. So, like I said, our service is almost entirely done within NYCHA developments, where our members are credible messengers, and members are part of the change in NYCHA. They know the system, they know the challenges, and they're invested in making it better. And in this way, we're building these local leaders. So, you know, members are engaged in a really broad range of sustainability service and training, not only to cast a wide net to expose them to careers and build skills, but also because sustainability is interconnected systems. And through weaving all of these pieces together, it reinforces the eco-literacy training they receive and building the connections between environmental and racial justice. So we're doing this through our eco-hubs, which are a product of 2 of our key service initiatives over the past decade, which have culminated in a holistic approach to sustainable, inclusive, empowered communities. Next slide. So the service corps is the pre-apprenticeship space. It's a place of career exploration and interest building. So Green City Force is providing our young adult participants with an entry point to have legitimacy and agency in the sector by developing essential workplace skills, earning baseline industry recognized credentials, and completing hands-on training while engaging as a team to complete service activities in communities that are typically underserved. And it's this unique experiential learning that's the platform and entry point to access quality jobs. Next slide. So how do we do all this? Where do we do it? Our eco hubs. Through our eco hubs, we're envisioning GCF as the civilian climate corps for NYCHA, which is a city within a city. So we're shifting the perspective and putting people over profit by valuing residents' time and commitment to a sustainable community. It's an intergenerational space for healing as community members of all ages support the transformation of community. The eco hubs are supporting closed loop systems and practices in NYCHA developments. Eco hubs are powered by NYCHA residents in training for careers in the green economy through our members and associated sectors. The project is expanding healthy food access, providing workforce development, community programming. We're promoting sustainable and connected public housing communities and engaging residents as agents of transformation around climate change and resiliency. And it's a real example of place-based investment, which is so critical. Again, NYCHA is a city within a city where we're seeing disproportionate rates of social and environmental injustice, where residents often feel powerless. So this gives power back to the communities where we can acknowledge the resilience that exists within the community and are supporting by offering resources. And this act of young people of color from NYCHA, changing the narrative and shifting the perspective of what it means to be from public housing is in itself an act of resistance. They are providing a space for the community to collectively heal and hope from oppression. So with that, I am going to pass it back to Felicia.
Yes, thank you, Erin. So as Erin has already alluded, our service model is a holistic approach to dismantling climate, social, food, and racial injustice, while leveraging the most important assets in the communities, which is our young people, right? They're living in the developments or nearby the developments in which they serve, right? So they are credible messengers and leaders in this work, educating the residents on the issues that are directly impacting them, right? Because we don't want people who don't live in the community coming in and saying, hey, this is what you need to do to be a better community, right? Our young people are the credible messengers. We need to invest in the people who live there because they have what they need to fix the issues within their communities. Hope and healing are essential components in our programming. And we'll talk about that in the next slide. So what does hope and healing look like? At the core of our work, it's supporting our young people in healing from both an individual and a collective scope. So our young people are meeting with social workers. We're doing referrals for psychotherapy because we're recognizing that trauma exists. It impacts the way that people show up in the workforce. It impacts the way that people show up in their day-to-day. So the work is happening on a skills perspective of the skills that you need to do to navigate this space. And this is the work that we need to do from an internal level to be able to support you to show up authentic and unapologetic. So by actively acknowledging the systems that they navigate and encounter, we help them reclaim the power, right? So there's always this idea of code switching. We're not saying, well, this is the system and you have to be able to code switch to be able to navigate the system. We're saying these are the issues this is what's wrong in the system. I want to support you in knowing this system, navigate this system so that you can get into that system and disrupt it. because we don't want them to feel like I need to be someone else to be able to get to where I need to be, right? It's all about reclaiming their power, reclaiming their time. The members are learning about this work and the importance of their presence in this work from a racial justice and equity lens. It's happening at orientation. It's baked in throughout all of our programming because they have to understand the why in this work. We empathize the power of showing up for their team and their communities, and we're teaching them hard and soft skills. So it's not only about the technical training, right, but it's about the transferable skills, the systems navigation, and the healing work, so that we're operating and dismantling systems from a micro and a macro level. All right, next slide. We'll start with the video first. So the video that you just saw was our Each One Teach One initiative that we launched last year on Juneteenth as an initiative to support elevating BIPOC voices in our communities. Like Erin said before, our farm spaces are more than just spaces where people come to collect food. It's about liberation, it's about education, and we want to teach our young people and the people in the community that there's so many people who look like you that are doing the work. So it's all about education, lifting up the voices of Black and Brown folks in the communities who are doing the work. We're challenging and reflecting on organizational practices to actively decolonize systems. So anti-racism is such a huge part of the work that we do. And it's not new, right? I think that we have been naming it and being intentional about teaching our young people about it, considering all of what happened in the last year. We are integrating across all aspects of the organization and beyond in service. Next slide. So how do you embrace anti-racism, right? So it's about naming and creating shared language on systems of oppression, including white supremacy culture, colonization, racism, anti-Blackness, and how it impacts the people that we are serving. I think for a really long time, it's been really hard for folks to have these kind of conversations, especially in workspaces and workforce development organizations generally. But when we talk about what it means to liberate, we have to be able to name these systems so that we can support our young people as our leaders to be able to go into spaces and dismantle those systems. And we have to operate from a historical perspective, right? What has history told us about anti-Blackness? What has history told us about racism? How are we perpetuating those systems or not, right? And educate the folks on the policies that have further marginalized BIPOC folks. Create spaces to pull people in the conversation and normalize these conversations. They are no longer taboo. Race and intersectionality are important conversations. We're also engaging our young people in the Sending the Right Signal workshop that was hosted in partnership with the Core Network, where we had an opportunity for the young people to raise their racial awareness, learn about white supremacy culture, and be intentional about this work. And lastly, our young people are engaging in the Liberation and Leadership workshop. So this is the final, our young people are actually just about to do it next week, where they're really going to be intentional about making the intersections between liberation, equity, justice, and leadership, right? Because there's no leadership without equity. There's no leadership without liberation. There's no leadership without naming systems. We have to do the work. They're not siloed. All right, so in the next slide, I'm going to introduce Aram, who will be talking about this work.
You can Oh no, you can start here. Thank you, Felicia. So, hey everyone, my name is Aram Marcelle, and I am the Alumni Training and Advancement Manager with Green City Force. I've been with Green City Force for the past 5 years, but I've been in the green workforce development space for nearly 10 years. I have a background in sustainability, energy efficiency, training, environmental justice, and I'm really happy to talk with you all today about the alumni piece of our program, because really what it is about empowering our graduates to connect to employment within the green sector. You can go to the next slide. So over the last 10 years, GCF has demonstrated a proven approach to connecting to young adults to green careers. As you can see here from our stats, we have 82% graduation rate, over 500 alumni, really nearing 600 alumni now, 83% job placement at 6 months. And really the main thing that we want to get across with this slide here is that young adults in NYCHA are ready to serve and be impactful. They're talented, and we need them in this new economy. So what we really want to convey is that there's a lot of work to be done in this city as far as making it green in New York City. We have a lot of different city initiatives and state initiatives to improve the city's sustainability as far as climate change and resilience. And our members have been demonstrating their ability to contribute to this movement. So a lot of the work that we're doing now is making sure that they're able to connect to this movement. So you hear me talk a lot about connecting to the jobs and to the opportunities and to the long-term career pathways. I can go to the next slide. So this is a really simple framework to explain our career pathways framework, right? So the first thing is the service corps experience. So Erin was describing what we do with them when they enter in the program. There's the recruitment, and then there's the training, right? And there's a lot of the work that Felicia was describing as well. So that's the first step. The next step is the entry-level employment. So we're talking about after they graduate from the program, right? We're trying to think long-term, how can they build a career, right? Like how can they not just get a job that is minimum wage and they work and they stay there for multiple years, right, without growth. We're thinking about how to partner with them so that they can continue to advance and grow within the space. And this is the framework that we want to employ, because we want them to know that it's not like a one and done program. It's a lifelong commitment to work with them and to partner with them and to help them navigate these systems, as Felicia was saying. So the second step is just that entry-level job to help them build up their resume, right? What do you need to have on your resume to build those skills and to build that experience? That entry-level job could also be work with our green, our social enterprise, which we'll talk a little bit more about later on. But essentially, we have a graduate-run social enterprise that employs our graduates to give them more experience before they jump into that last level, at which you see there is the full-time stable employment with benefits, right? And sometimes we have people who jump right into that last level, but this is generally the framework that we're using to think about how to help our grads not just get that first job, right, but really build a career. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. So our career pathways team works with a wide array of employers to provide job placement for our graduates. And these partners, they not only provide placement, but they also provide valuable feedback to us on how we can continue to grow and be innovative with our program, because we really want to prepare our participants for the job market. And the worst thing that you can do is have someone go through a training program for 6, 8, 9 months, and it doesn't translate into something that has helped them, right? Not all placements are job related, as Erin spoke about and Felicia spoke about, but for the folks who are looking for a leg up in the careers, we really want the program to help empower them, right? So we've built a lot of relationships with partners where we're able to have multiple hires. Sometimes it starts as an individual and it goes to, we're able to expand that, right? But then getting that feedback on the program and on things that we can improve and iterate on to help strengthen the program and to make it better overall. And we've also partnered with NYCHA to do some work on hiring projects as well too. You can go to the next slide. So in the past 10 years, we've been working to make the promise of green jobs for young adults in NYCHA a reality, right? And when I say green jobs a reality for young adults, we're talking about folks who have no prior experience, no exposure to the sector, right? But we know that the green space it's growing tremendously, right? But how do you connect someone to these jobs? So we've been designing this program and iterating and recruiting people and training. And through this process, you could see from the chart here, we've had 65% of our graduates go into energy and building related fields. Now, this is a really important number because when you zoom out and you look at the city, BIPOC representation only accounts for 28% of the energy efficiency field in New York State. 28%. But that's despite the fact that 46 or 47% of New York City or New York State is made up of BIPOC folks. So why is that, right? So there's this historical inequities there. But what we've been able to do with our program is to get a lot of our folks into these fields and these emerging fields, such as the energy and green building space. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of, in New York City and state, there's a lot of local laws and initiatives to lower greenhouse gas emissions, right? So we want our folks to be connected to these jobs. We don't want the city to be changing and going green without them, right? It can't go green without them. In order for it to be sustainable, they have to be involved in the movement. So we've had a lot of success in getting our folks into these jobs. And you see here, there's different types of work throughout these different sectors, but energy efficiency has really been the main driver, although we also do urban agriculture, farming, landscape work, a lot of different stuff. You can go to the next slide. And when we talk about emerging sectors, energy efficiency and solar has been really big. They're growing at tremendous rates, again, because of the city and states laws to really combat climate change, right? So there are a lot of jobs coming, being created because of this. And we've been working really closely with NYCHA, because NYCHA now has very large scale sustainability initiatives, such as solar projects, such as energy efficiency installation. We're talking about installing the panels on top of roofs, but then also going inside residents' homes and installing energy efficiency measures. So as we see all this work happening, and NYCHA is trying to go green, as Tonya mentioned, it's a city within a city, right? The city can't go green without NYCHA, right? So NYCHA has all these sustainability initiatives. They're starting to retrofit their buildings. They're putting in solar panels. But where are these jobs going, right? Like, we don't want outside developers coming in and doing this work, and residents are just watching the city kind of change without them, right? We want them to be able to connect to it, right? So that's where Green City Force comes in. We've partnered with NYCHA to get our folks into these jobs so that it's not outside developers coming in and doing these amazing projects without them having a pathway there, right? So the HUD's Section 3, which is a local hiring requirement, has really been a great way for us to get our folks connected to work within NYCHA, and NYCHA's huge, right? There's over 300 plus developments, largest landlord in the city. So there's many buildings, a lot of building stock, and a lot of work to do. So that's been, we've had a lot of success getting our folks work within the solar and the energy efficiency space, particularly within NYCHA. You can go to the next slide. And on this slide here, we're just really kind of talking a little bit more about the energy space. As I mentioned before, 65% of our folks are going into the energy space, right? And this is against all odds, right? Because only 29% or 28% of this field is represented by people of color. So it is so we're underrepresented in this field, but despite that, Green City Force has been plowing ahead with trainings and partners to get our folks connected. And some of the roles that they've been working in is things such as direct installers. These are folks who come into the home and install energy efficiency measures such as light bulbs, shower heads, aerators. I mean, these are jobs. People get paid good money for this, right? Like $17 an hour in New York City just to come into someone's home and install these measures. Solar installers, going on top of roofs, right, and installing these solar panels. And I'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. Maintenance work, right? Believe it or not, maintenance is also a type of green job. Maintaining green buildings, high performance buildings, making sure that they're clean and healthy, right? Which also ties into a lot to the COVID response, right? That we've been seeing, where we need the buildings to not only be running properly and running efficiently, we also need them to be clean, indoor air quality, right? So all of these different things really tie in. And then you have green construction, and green construction is construction, but done in a green way, right? So it's not even just, it's not reinventing the wheel. It's just getting into these jobs and employing green skills, right? You can go to the next slide. As I mentioned before, we've been partnering with NYCHA to launch their community solar projects. So NYCHA, huge landlord. They've in 2020 they've officially begun to install solar panels in their developments, and Green City Force was right there partnering with NYCHA and other program partners as a recruitment partner to not only recruit graduates of Green City Force to get into these programs, but also recruit NYCHA residents, again, to get them into a training. What we said was, hey, look, this work is happening, right? We want to set up a training where we can get our folks trained up and also residents from the developments trained up, right? So that they were actually able to go in there having no prior experience and actually be installing solar panels in their developments, right? To make their environment a cleaner, better place. So they're connecting to this thing that maybe seemed far off before, which is then sparking an interest to get more into green jobs. And additionally, these are solar panels that are providing, they're community solar. So it's providing solar to solar power to low to moderate income residents in the city, that some of them live within NYCHA, some of them are just living within the community, right? So it's helping to green the city, economic development, creating jobs, training skills, and it's really helping folks to grow and connect to this really meaningful movement at a time when it's needed so really, right? But anyway, we can go to the next slide. And so in addition to our program, right? So going back to those 3 steps, the first step is the service program, where we are recruiting folks into this service initiative where they're doing urban ag work, they're doing energy efficiency work, and many other sustainability projects. Then after they graduate from the program, if they have more interest, right? So we're talking about alumni specifically. After they graduate from the program, if they have a deeper interest in getting into energy and growing in their leadership skills, we have an alumni-run social enterprise, which I'm not going to steal Josh's thunder. He's going to talk more about this, but essentially, this is an experience where they're able to join a training, get continuous certifications that can help them, and help them build more hands-on experience. So essentially, GCF is an employer now of these alumni, and we're trying to model best employer practices, right? We're trying to be a great employer, so that they have a great experience, and we're also just providing a platform for them to get more hands-on experience, more learning, more leadership. There's mentorship opportunities from older alumni, right? So it's an opportunity for them to build experience while also continuing to work with Green City Force, help us expand our initiatives, and then move to that next step, right? So this is the second step we're talking about here. So we have the entry-level jobs, but then also the energy of pre-apprenticeship, right? Where they've passed the exposure phase of the program, meaning that the program kind of exposed them to sustainability and like, wow, this is something I can do. And then the second step is making a decision that I want to go further into this, right? So this would be a second step saying, hey, I actually want to go further than just that first step in the program. And then the last step, which Tonya, you can go to the next slide. Right, the next step is, okay, you've done this experience. What comes after, right? Family sustaining wages, right? So here's an example of Earlton Massenberg, who went through our program. He went through the first step, right? No knowledge of sustainability practices or what the city's doing to go green, but he likes to work with his hands, right? So he came into the program liking to work with his hands. We exposed him to sustainability, energy efficiency. So he started to learn more about that, and he started building interest. And he learned that he had an interest in electricity. So we knew, okay, boom, you want to get into sustainability, you want to get into green construction, electricity. All right, he graduates from the program. He goes into our social enterprise, our pre-apprenticeship. So now he's gaining more energy efficiency experience. He's gaining a deeper understanding, a deeper knowledge of the field and of the space. And during that time, while he was working on our social enterprise, an opportunity arose for him to do a construction training that would essentially lead to an apprenticeship with Local 3, which is the electrical union within the city. So he came in not knowing anything, built an interest. Next level up, he's working now as an apprentice in our social enterprise. And then the next step from that, he said, okay, I want to actually pursue this, and I want to go farther. And he ended up working with Local 3. He's in a 5-year apprenticeship. He's going to be making a lot of money once he becomes a full-time electrician. So this is really just like the end result of one path. We have many different paths to kind of speak to how we're partnering. And just one last thing I'll say before I hand it over to Josh is that it's really about partnership with the alumni. It's not them going through the program and then kicking them out the door, right? Okay, you graduated, we're done. It's a continuous relationship. I talk with alumni more than I talk to my own family members. It's like we're constantly talking, we're constantly in communication. Hey, Aram, how do I, I'm coming up against this at my job, right? It's like, what do I do here? What do I say to this person? Aram, you know what? I've been stuck here for a while. I want to grow. I want to move up, right? It's like helping them. I don't want to say it's a life coach, but we're like career coaching, and we're helping them to make decisions. We're helping them to figure out what they're doing, right? So that they don't feel like they're alone. Retention is a big part of it, right? The hardest part oftentimes is not getting that first job. The hardest part is getting the job and then waking up the next day and going to work, and then coming home, and then waking up the next day and going to work, and then waking up the next day and going to work. Like the continuous process of continuing to work, it can be challenging and difficult, right? So we want to be there as a moral support, as a career support, and really partner with them so that they can get to these higher level jobs and wages. I think that is it. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Josh so he can talk a little bit more about this social enterprise experience.
Thank you, Aram. Hey, everyone. My name is Joshua Owens. I'm our project manager of our social enterprise. I've been with the organization as a staff member for a little over 5 years. And I also went through the program, so I'm an alumni of the program from early 14. Next slide. So jumping into our social enterprise in early 2017, Green City Force, we started our social enterprise as a direct pipeline to employ alumni from our program, more recent alumni who previously graduated, and older alumni from cohorts ranging from the first pilot to all the way up to cohort 21. And the idea here is to create community leaders, like Aram said, and the rest of my team mentioned earlier. All of our youth are minorities who come from public housing, and they're working with us on these major contracts to create community change in their developments at good paying wages. So it's perfect. I see it honestly as poetic to have our members come back to the communities that they grew up from, and things are tough in some of these communities, to actually be a positive role model and figure to help recreate the community. To speak to a little bit of the imagery here, it shows a few of our members doing installations within the interior and exterior of public housing. So we do work within the basements to remove inefficient lighting, and water conservation members, aerators, to reduce the water usage. And then we also provide those services within the homes as a form of reduction and education to the residents, and to the parents, and to children, and to youth within those homes. Next slide. Yeah, this is a funny story. Well, this shows an image of myself as a member back in early 2014 with my team, and we were sitting on a pitch roof getting ready to map out how to exactly install a solar panel, which was a little terrifying for myself and the rest of the team. As you can see, we see a few scared guys here, but this work took place in Far Rockaway, Queens. And immediately, just for me personally, I worked on many different. I worked in many different areas, but to come here and learn about sustainability and to get out there a week after my orientation to be placed on a roof, it was crazy to me. But I knew immediately that this is where I wanted to be. I wanted to continue to work in this field on everything sustainable. And this is where my story begins. Next slide. So through our social enterprise, our alumni, they get the opportunity and exposure to work on many different fronts through through our contracted work. So we do our most noticeable work has been on the EPC, doing large scale energy efficiency retrofits to what I was just speaking to. So we come into communities and we look to reduce the interior, exterior water usage and energy usage within a residents' home. We do HVAC work. To speak to the picture there, that's one of our guys looking to clean out a duct system on a rooftop of public housing to try to help provide a clear airflow and healthy ventilations for the residents of the building. And all these things, while they're doing it, they're learning these hard skills. Our guys are being exposed to opportunities to work alongside other project managers, other field directors, electricians, sheet metal workers, and plumbers. So they're learning firsthand. New experience and more technical skills. And then we're looking to try to push to have these guys work with our employer partners or take the skills that they learn to seek more opportunities. So like Tonya said earlier, I think the idea here is to empower our youth, train them as much as we can, and put them in positions to be at the table, to speak at the table, and be a voice for themselves, for their communities, for their peers, to get them to that next level into higher careers. Also with urban forestry, we did some work recently to educate our guys there. Next slide, sir. This picture. So this was my first time joining the social enterprise. This was our second development, I believe, out in the Bronx, Lillian and Walt houses, if anyone's familiar. This was one of our first circle ups to kind of just get a feel of development, let the teams introduce themselves. We had NYCHA lead officials help introduce themselves before we kicked off the work at this community. So we're usually here in full force, as you can see, in uniform, running through safety drills and looking to do the work correctly. Next slide. This picture provides an image of two of our alumni working on our most recent contract. In late 2020, we partnered with NYCHA to do tree inventory work across Manhattan, Bronx, and Brooklyn, to conduct inventory counts of the trees, to seek health inspections of the trees, to get a sense of what could be eating at the trees and killing the trees. Through this work, we employed 6 GCF alumni to expose them to work within urban forestry and to develop a partnership with those partners to continue to work. Next slide. I'm sorry, that's actually my last slide.
That's great. So I feel a lot of gratitude for my amazing team, and except for Josh, they're not even the core members. So amazing. Thank you guys. We have this slide up here because we recognize that GCF is very much systems oriented and collaboration oriented, and the core network is an excellent model of that. And I want, if nothing else, a takeaway from this conversation today being like, of course, the reality of what it takes to have a holistic, national, impactful civilian climate core has got to include priorities around cities where there's dense need, clear climate challenges, and opportunity for equity as well as other things. So I'm going to actually stop sharing my screen in a minute so that there's a chance for a little bit of engagement, because I know there's a lot of activity in the chat, but I can't see it. And I want to try to spend the last 10 minutes providing a little space for others from, you know, all the different cores and audience members and participants to contribute, to reflect, to share your ideas. I'm not going to go through these points. I think we've done a pretty clear job of emphasizing, you know, large-scale environmental initiatives that make impact, that show what a model could look like, literally demonstrating what the future vision of a future green city could be, and understanding that it is only successful with intentional, equity-centered approaches to addressing the multiple pieces of equity tied to policy decisions, public-private investment, employers, and of course, young people and communities not only being part of the solution, but driving solutions. So I'm actually gonna stop sharing at the end. Actually, I'll do this one more time. Here's the contact information for my folks. So I'm sure you probably have lots of questions that beyond today we won't cover. So I welcome everybody to reach out as you see fit. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now so that we can give others an opportunity to weigh in. If you care to like make a comment, if you want to raise your hands, this is so many of us, I'm happy to do that, or we can look at the chat as instead, see where we go. But I don't want to miss the moment that so many folks have been making comments. So, and you guys are going to help me out if I'm missing anybody. All right.
I've been trying to answer some stuff as it's coming in, but I haven't gotten to everything.
Okay, all right. And so for folks from the other urban cores, if anyone wants to sort of offer their thoughts or their ideas about what we should be talking about and thinking about. I don't want to call on you, but no, I'm kidding. I mean, we want to lift up the space for other urban cores to contribute. So welcome that. All right. How do we get the Biden administration to use this as a model? That's great. That's a great question. Well, thanks to the core network, I think there's been a lot of intention and a lot of efforts to partner with us and others around informing what that could look like and what is necessary. Are there any particular grants or other sources of funding that help Green City Force provide these experiences? Okay, well, my hat before executive director was development, so I can definitely answer that one. So we get our AmeriCorps funding through New York, through the core network. We're very fortunate to have different types of other government, federal and local investments. Like most of you, I'm sure the big challenge is the lift of like, not just the match, but multiple year major investments so that you can be strategic in planning a growth plan. So we do have a range from our social enterprise, from our traditional philanthropy and corporate sponsorship. There's a mix of our revenues, but you know, like all of you, to scale and grow, we need more dedication of multiple year challenge, commitment and investment around that. So can you talk about your fee for service programs? Is that relationship just through NYCHA or other entities? How critical is that revenue to overall operations? I'm laughing because we've been having this conversation for about 4 years. The short answer is we are on the right path, talking to peers and others about our challenges being real and aligned with other organizations' challenges. So trying to avoid a boom and bust opportunity. If you're trying to get contracts, Josh and his team have been incredibly nimble and responsive to opportunities. And so the long answer is the majority of the contracts have come to us through NYCHA retrofit work in partnership with ESCOs. There have been, for a very long time, a much smaller part of our shop that is tied to New York State. If any of you are familiar with NYSERDA, affordable housing, energy audit opportunities. And then, like others, we're looking at major companies to, in the long term, have a stronger connection and partnership with. So I don't know, Josh, if you want to add anything to that, but that's, I think, or Lisbeth, anybody else want to jump on that one?
Oh yeah, I think you touched that part perfectly. I can't answer the last question that Erin just posted. I just can't see it anymore.
I think it was just a general question, like what are the different types of contracts or connections for social enterprise?
The question was from Joe. It said, are all of the social enterprise positions considered pre-apprenticeship, and are the pre-apprenticeships directly tied to existing or involved apprenticeship sponsors?
No, Aram, if you want to speak to the pre-apprenticeship.
Sure. So they are not they're not officially pre-apprenticeships. However, we are modeling best practices of what we'd want this apprenticeship to look like. So we've been partnering with NYSERDA, which is the green, the New York State, basically green funding office. And basically, we've been partnering with them to figure out ways to design what an energy efficiency pre-apprenticeship track would look like. So we're trying to model that based off of other apprenticeships. So it's not technically a pre-apprenticeship, however, it's modeled after them. But what we do is we partner with other organizations that have that designation of like an actual pre-apprenticeship. So it's like a step in between. Right, so Earlton, for example, a direct entry is what I was looking for. So Earlton, for example, he went through our program, he gained a lot of experience, and then we partnered with a pre-apprenticeship program so that he can get that direct entry experience, so he can get into the union. So we're still in the early stages of figuring this out, but open to suggestions and ideas on how we can continue to grow it.
Oh yeah, thank you, Aram. To speak to that more, on our social enterprise, being that our work is contracted work, ranging directly with NYCHA, other partners, we employ our alumni temporarily on our social enterprise. So the idea is to employ them from the range of the project to work with us and further, if there is other opportunity. And if we can hire people permanently, we look to do that as well. But we want to put people, like I said earlier, we want to put our alumni in positions to, being that we're working on these massive contracts with people who come with significant expertise. We're pushing our alumni to network and work with these guys, put their best foot forward, and to take the initiative to step up so they could seek employment with these partners. Because a lot of these jobs are career track jobs. They can end up becoming, like Aaron spoke to on Earlton, I worked with him a few years ago, and he was amazing. He was an amazing young guy. He came in fully dedicated, wanting to learn, partnering up with electricians because that's the work he wanted to do. So I pushed him to do that. And just to set the bar high, to come in every day and just try to outwork your partner and just learn as much as you can, to put your best foot forward. And now he's in a really good place. So the idea is to not allow our alumni to get too comfortable with staying with us on our social enterprise. The idea is to use it as a stepping stone to something else. But yeah, I hope I touched on that well enough.
Okay, somebody asked the question, Ben, what would you say is your biggest recruiting tool when speaking with applicants? What is the biggest carrot that joining GCF provides if you had to pick one aspect?
I don't know if I could pick just one. I think that's sort of something really valuable about the program is there's a million ways to market it. If you are interested in If you're already interested in the sector, it's obviously a great way to build on that. If you're interested in looking to get involved and just to be more social, or get outside your comfort zone, there's a million ways to pitch it. But I would say a really common sort of piece we use when, speaking to applicants is that you want to invest in yourself. That you're not just looking for another job, you're looking for a career. We recognize that New York City has seen an increase in the minimum wage. And so it is like in some ways a sacrifice, right? To be committing yourself to a term of service where you're getting a living allowance and, MetroCard and Ed Award, but it's not as much as you could be making even in a minimum wage job, because we've seen the rise here. So it's selling it as investing in yourself, and then here's all of our results, really using that as a way to show the opportunities coming out of the program. So, I think our alums are one of our greatest recruitment tools. And I know there were some questions on if, the alumni positions were salaried or stipended, but outside of the social enterprise, also all of our staff leading our teams of members are all alums. And I just did a count. I don't know if our staff page is fully up to date, but 50% of our staff are alums.
That's even better than it's usually around a third. 50, that's fantastic. All right, I think we have like a couple minutes. Hillary, I think you're gonna cut us off soon, so I don't know. Lisbeth, anybody else on the team, do you wanna add any final comments? All right, I was gonna try to shout out like Park and Julia and other folks, but everyone's being shy, so appreciate that. And I guess because there are other questions in here, again, I was for the last time share my screen and invite anyone who wants to follow up with us. We're happy to continue the conversation, but definitely mindful of everyone's time, and also really appreciative of this space for us to talk about our work. So thank you.
My name is Charmaine. Sorry. Hi, my name is Charmaine. And I have a lot of background, but I did want to input to everyone. I don't have much course, experience, because I'm new to it, like 3 years, but what I have been introduced to so far and what I know from community-based, when the team is out doing communal projects and to help inspire young people to grow in this career interest, I suggest that there should be someone in the community passing out flyers and seeing if they are interested to do a day communal service, because I've seen young people in my community who see these bright t-shirts, out there digging in the dirt, and they're like, what's going on over there? What are they doing? So one day I took the young man, he's 10 years old, walked him over there and had the conversation, and they allowed him to engage and be a part of the communal, project that they were in. So that's how I believe we can start by, really tapping into, young youth interest, even start from the age of 8 and up when you are in their community, because, they're not exposed to the type of work, but they are curious. So I just wanted to add to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anyone else in our final minute? Okay, well, this is obviously a very robust conversation. Mission driven, helps, absolutely leads in number one. My job retention is the mission, as I think is true for most of our team members. So definitely appreciate everybody. Thank you all for joining, and thank you, TCN, for hosting us.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone, for attending. See you at the closing.
See you at the closing. Bye.